The baby carrier sat empty in the woman's lap as Ryan Reynolds talked about the terror of new fatherhood. Ellen had been discussing the actor's journey from bachelor to dad when she noticed the young mother in the second row staring at the unused carrier with an expression of such profound failure that it made Ellen's heart skip a beat. What happened next proved that sometimes the bravest thing a parent can do is admit they're drowning in plain sight. The Ellen DeGeneres show studio buzzed with warm, familial energy this Tuesday afternoon in Burbank. 420 audience members filled the space, many of them parents who had come to hear one of Hollywood's funniest leading men discuss the reality behind his carefully crafted public persona. Ryan Reynolds sat in the guest chair with his characteristic blend of confidence and self-deprecation, wearing a perfectly fitted navy sweater that somehow managed to look both casual and sophisticated. Ellen, stunning in a soft lavender blazer with silver piping that caught the studio lights beautifully, was thoroughly enjoying their conversation about how becoming a father had stripped away his ability to hide behind constant humor. "Ryan, you've always been known for your wit and timing, but you've said that fatherhood changed your relationship with comedy," Ellen said, her voice carrying the gentle curiosity that had made difficult conversations feel safe for millions of viewers. "Can you explain what you mean by that?" Ryan leaned forward slightly, his hands clasped loosely in his lap, as he considered the question with uncharacteristic seriousness. "Ellen, I think for most of my adult life, I used humor as armor. If I could make people laugh, they wouldn't ask deeper questions. They wouldn't see the parts of me that felt inadequate or scared. But when you become responsible for another human being, that armor becomes a barrier to actually connecting with your child." The audience listened with unusual intensity, many of the parents nodding in recognition as they heard their own struggles with authentic parenting reflected in his words. "The first few months with each of our daughters," Ryan continued, "I kept trying to be funny Ryan Reynolds, the guy from the movies, when what my family actually needed was just Ryan. Vulnerable, imperfect, terrified Ryan who had no idea what he was doing but was willing to figure it out." But even as the conversation flowed beautifully, Ellen's attention was increasingly drawn to the second row, where a young woman sat holding an infant carrier that was clearly designed for a baby but remained conspicuously empty. The woman's posture suggested exhaustion beyond normal new parent tiredness, and Ellen could see that she was fighting back tears while trying to remain invisible. "You mentioned the terror of early parenthood," Ellen said, though she found herself glancing repeatedly at the distressed woman. "What advice would you give to new parents who feel like they're failing at the most important job they'll ever have?" Ryan's expression grew more serious, his voice taking on the passionate tone that appeared whenever he discussed issues close to his heart. "First, I'd tell them that feeling like you're failing is actually evidence that you care enough to do it right. The parents who never question themselves are the ones I worry about. Second, I'd tell them that asking for help isn't admitting defeat. It's modeling good decision-making for your children." As Ryan spoke about the importance of vulnerability and asking for help, Ellen watched the young woman's reaction become more intense. She was now clutching the empty baby carrier against her chest like a life preserver, and Ellen could see that whatever was causing her distress was becoming harder to contain. Ellen's maternal instincts, refined through decades of recognizing when audience members needed intervention, told her that this wasn't just emotional response to a touching interview. This was someone in crisis. "Ryan," Ellen said gently, standing up and walking slowly across the stage with her hands clasped behind her back in a contemplative gesture. "I hope you don't mind me asking, but there's someone in our audience who seems very affected by what you're saying about early parenthood. I'm wondering if we should check on her." Ryan immediately followed Ellen's gaze to the second row, his performer's instincts allowing him to quickly locate the woman in distress. The moment he saw her clutching the empty carrier, his expression shifted to one of protective concern. "Of course," Ryan said, leaning forward on the very edge of his chair, with his hands tightly clasped, his body language indicating complete focus on the situation. "Ma'am, are you okay? What's going on?" The unexpected attention caused the young woman to look up in panic, clearly mortified to be singled out while in such a vulnerable state. 26-year-old Sarah Chen from Los Angeles clutched the baby carrier tighter, wishing she could disappear entirely. "I'm sorry," Sarah said, her voice barely audible and thick with exhaustion. "I didn't mean to cause a disruption, When you started talking about feeling like you're failing as a parent, it hit too close to home." Ellen immediately began moving toward the audience, but instead of her usual confident approach, she moved with careful deliberation, her lavender blazer creating a calming presence as she gave Sarah time to process being the center of attention. "Sweetheart, you're not causing any disruption," Ellen said warmly, crouching down beside Sarah's row rather than towering over her. "Where's your baby? Is everything all right?" Sarah's face crumpled at the gentle question, months of suppressed anguish finally finding release. "She's with my mother. I brought the carrier because I thought if I had it with me I might feel more like a real mother, but instead it just reminds me that even when she's not here, I still feel like I'm failing her." The raw honesty in Sarah's admission hit the studio like a physical force. Ryan's expression transformed with immediate recognition and deep concern, understanding that he was witnessing something far more serious than general parenting anxiety. "Sarah," Ryan said, his voice gentle but strong enough to carry across the studio. "How old is your baby?" 6 months, Sarah whispered, her voice breaking completely. "Her name is Emma, and she's perfect, and I love her more than life itself, but I can't stop feeling like she deserves a better mother than me." Ellen felt tears spring to her eyes as she recognized the telltale signs of postpartum depression. The way Sarah was articulating feelings of inadequacy that had nothing to do with her actual parenting abilities, and everything to do with brain chemistry and societal pressure. "Sarah," Ellen said softly, "can you tell us what makes you feel like you're failing Emma? Because from where I'm sitting, a mother who cares enough to worry about being good enough is probably doing better than she thinks." Sarah wiped her eyes with trembling hands, still clutching the empty carrier like evidence of her maternal inadequacy. "I don't feel connected to her the way everyone said I would. Everyone talks about instant maternal love, about feeling complete the moment you hold your baby, but I mostly just feel terrified and overwhelmed. I love her desperately, but I don't feel like I know how to be her mother." Ryan stood up abruptly from his chair, his navy sweater creating a striking silhouette as he took a step toward Sarah with one hand on his hip and the other pointing gently in her direction. "Sarah, stop right there. What you just described isn't failure. What you just described is honesty about one of the most challenging transitions a human being can experience." The authority in Ryan's voice seemed to cut through Sarah's self-doubt, offering her a different perspective on her experience. "Can I tell you something?" Ryan continued, his voice carrying across the studio with passionate conviction. "When our first daughter was born, Blake had to physically hand her to me because I was so terrified of dropping her that I couldn't make myself reach for her. I spent the first 3 months convinced that every cry meant I was doing something catastrophically wrong." Sarah stared at Ryan in amazement, clearly struggling to reconcile this admission with the confident, funny persona she knew from movies and interviews. "But here's what I learned," Ryan said, moving closer to the audience area. "The feeling of not knowing what you're doing isn't evidence that you're not cut out for parenthood. It's evidence that you understand the magnitude of the responsibility. The parents who feel completely confident from day one are either lying or haven't fully grasped what they've signed up for." Ellen nodded emphatically, still crouched beside Sarah's row. "Ryan's absolutely right. Sarah, what you're describing sounds like it might be postpartum depression or anxiety, which affects up to 20% of new mothers. This isn't a character flaw or a sign that you're not meant to be a mother. This is a medical condition that's completely treatable. Sarah looked between Ellen and Ryan, clearly amazed to hear her private struggle being discussed with such understanding and lack of judgment. But everyone else seems to have figured it out so easily. My mom, my friends who have kids, they all talk about how natural it felt, how they just knew what to do. Ryan's expression grew more serious, his voice taking on the tone he reserved for his most important points. Sarah, I'm going to let you in on a secret that every honest parent knows but nobody talks about. Everyone is making it up as they go along. The difference is that some people are better at pretending they have it figured out. Ellen felt the power of this conversation building, understanding that they were addressing something that millions of new parents experienced but rarely discussed openly. Sarah, I want you to know that being a good mother doesn't mean feeling confident all the time. Being a good mother means caring enough to question yourself, to seek help when you need it, and to keep showing up even when you feel inadequate. But what if I'm damaging her? Sarah asked, her voice full of the fear that had been consuming her for months. What if my anxiety and depression are somehow hurting her development? What if she can sense that I don't feel like I know what I'm doing? Ryan walked directly into the audience area, abandoning his celebrity position entirely to stand close to Sarah. Sarah, babies don't need perfect mothers. They need present mothers. They need mothers who love them and who are willing to learn and grow alongside them. Everything else is just noise. Ellen stood up from her crouched position and placed a gentle hand on Sarah's shoulder. Sweetheart, have you talked to anyone about these feelings? Your doctor, a therapist, anyone who specializes in postpartum mental health? Sarah shook her head, shame evident in her posture. I kept thinking it would get better on its own. I kept thinking that if I just tried harder, if I just loved her more, if I just figured out the right way to be a mother, these feelings would go away. Oh, honey, Ellen said, her voice full of compassion. That's like thinking you can cure diabetes by trying harder. Postpartum depression isn't something you think your way out of. It's something you treat, and there's no shame in getting help. Ryan nodded emphatically, his hands now clasped in front of him in an open, encouraging gesture. Sarah, asking for help when you're struggling isn't admitting failure as a parent. It's modeling good problem-solving for your daughter. You're showing her that when life gets overwhelming, smart people reach out for support. Sarah looked around the studio, taking in the faces of audience members who were clearly moved by her story, many nodding with recognition and understanding rather than judgment. What would that look like? Sarah asked quietly. Getting help, I mean. I don't even know where to start. Ellen reached into her blazer pocket and pulled out her personal business card. Sarah, I'm going to give you my direct number, and I want you to call me tomorrow morning. I know the best postpartum specialists in Los Angeles, and we're going to make sure you get the support you deserve. But Ryan wasn't finished. He pulled out his own phone and began typing. Sarah, I'm texting you the contact information for the postpartum support organization that literally saved our family during our lowest moments. They have support groups, they connect you with specialists, and most importantly, they help you understand that you're not alone in this. Sarah stared at the phone number Ryan was writing down, completely overwhelmed by the idea that her private struggle was not only understood, but shared by people she respected and admired. There's something else I want you to understand, Ellen said, turning to address the camera and the millions of viewers watching. Sarah represents thousands of women who are suffering in silence because we've created this myth that motherhood should feel natural and easy from the beginning. The truth is that becoming a parent is one of the most dramatic life changes a person can experience, and it's completely normal to need time and support to adjust. Ryan stood up straighter, his navy sweater catching the lights as he addressed the broader audience. And for any partners out there watching, if someone you love is going through this, your job isn't to fix them or to tell them they should feel differently. Your job is to support them in getting professional help and to remind them every day that their worth as a parent isn't determined by how confident they feel. Sarah wiped her eyes, looking around the studio with an expression that had shifted from shame to something that looked like hope. You really think I can be a good mother even if it doesn't feel natural yet? Sarah, Ellen said with absolute conviction. The fact that you're here, the fact that you care enough to worry about being good enough, the fact that you carried that empty baby carrier because you wanted to feel more connected to your daughter, all of that tells me you're already a good mother. You just need some help learning to see it. Ryan walked back toward the stage, but turned to face Sarah one more time. And Sarah, when you're ready, when you've gotten some support and started healing, I want you to consider sharing your story with other new mothers. Because right now, there's another woman sitting at home thinking she's the only one who doesn't have it all figured out, and she needs to hear what you just shared with us. The studio erupted in applause, not the polite television kind, but the deep, sustained recognition of witnessing something that could literally save lives. Many of the women in the audience were wiping away their own tears, while partners and family members reached out to squeeze hands and offer quiet support. 6 months later, Sarah Chen had become a vocal advocate for postpartum mental health awareness. After getting treatment and support, she had started a blog called Learning to Mother that reached thousands of women struggling with similar feelings of inadequacy and disconnection. Ryan and Blake became patrons of the postpartum support organization that had helped their own family, using their platform to normalize conversations about the challenges of early parenthood. Ellen created a recurring segment called Real Parenting, where families shared honest stories about the struggles and joys of raising children, creating space for authentic conversations about the realities of parenthood beyond social media perfection. Sarah's relationship with her daughter Emma had transformed completely once she received proper treatment and support. She learned that love and connection could grow over time, that bonding wasn't always instant, and that being a good mother meant being honest about her struggles rather than pretending everything was perfect. Because sometimes the most important conversation happens when we stop pretending that love makes everything easy and start acknowledging that love makes everything worth the effort. Even when that effort includes asking for help, accepting support, and learning that being human is not the opposite of being a good parent. It's the foundation of authentic, sustainable parenthood.